Legislator Gaylor, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, if everybody would rise, face the flag, put your hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pulitzer, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Deputy Presiding Officer Richard Nicolello. Alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Howard Coppell. Sheila Bino. Thank you. Legislator Carrie Solage. Legislator Denise Ford. Legislator Laura Curran. Thank you. Legislator C. William Gaylord III.
Present.
Thank you. Legislator Vincent Muscarella. Legislator Ellen Birnbaum. Legislator Delia DeRiggi Whitten. Thank you. Legislator James Kennedy. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rosemarie Walker. Legislator Donald McKenzie. Okay. Legislator Stephen Rhodes.
Present.
Thank you. Minority Leader Kavan Abrahams. Presiding Officer Norma Gonzalez.
Present.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, Mr. Pulitzer, will you call the hearing?
Hearing on proposed ordinance, clerk item 351-17. A hearing on a proposed ordinance, clerk item 351-17, an ordinance to adopt the Nassau County budget for the 12-month 2018 fiscal year, beginning January 1, 2018, and ending December 31st, 2018, to appropriate revenues and the total amount of monies to be raised by taxation within the towns and cities of the County of Nassau for county fire prevention, safety, communication, and educational funds, county police headquarters, county police districts, county debt service, county sewer and storm water resource districts, county sewer and storm water finance authority fund, county environmental bond fund, and county New York State property tax refund, purposes for aforementioned 2018 fiscal year, pursuant to the provisions of the county government law of Nassau County, the Nassau County Administrative Code, the real property tax law of the state of New York, the county law, the local finance law, and the general municipal law.
Okay, motion by Deputy Presiding Officer Nicolello to open a hearing, and seconded by the alternate Deputy Alternate Howard Coppell. The hearing is, all those in favor of opening the hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The hearing is now open. And before we go, I would like for the record that Legislator McKenzie has joined.
Yes, ma'am, will do.
Thank you. Okay. It is customary at this point in time to give the opportunity to those who are here from the public to comment in regard to the hearing. And I'm beginning with Alec Slatsky.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Slack. I'm here from AAA Northeast. And I'm here to thank everyone because last week or 2 weeks ago or a few times I stood up here and said that I hope the legislature unanimously rejects the increase in the public safety fee, which was revealed last week, went from $55 up to $120. And it appears, based on media reports, that both parties have submitted amendments that do not include that public safety fee. So we're very happy to hear that. We want to thank all the legislators for that. But we do want to make sure that in any potential skirmishes, let's say, that are that might occur with NIFA after today and going forward over the next couple of weeks, that those fees continue to remain absent from any budget, because we view it as certainly bad policy, potentially an unlawful policy, and we hope that the legislature holds steadfast to the opinion that expressed today, which is that this fee increase is uncalled for and simply bad policy. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Alex. Randy Kaplan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Randy Kaplan, the Director of Government Affairs for the Long Island Board of Realtors. I, too, just want to thank everybody on behalf of all the realtors. You all listened. You all heard us. You understand very well how important it is to keep these fees out. So we want to convey our thanks to each and every one of you up there for recognizing that. As my peer with AAA said, Alex, if you could please just stand tall if NIFA does come back and reject the budget and say we need to get those fees in, we'd be very honored if you would just stand tall on that. And once again, thank you so much. I want to just let you know we're joined today by a few of our folks from LIBOR as well. And it's a pleasure working with each and every one of you, and thank you.
You're welcome, Randy. Michael Armstrong.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me. I am Mike Armstrong. I am the Director of Field Operations for Reclaim New York Initiative, a 501c4 organization that across the state seeks to make New York a more affordable place and to make New York's governments more transparent. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. We are here to send a basic message to the legislature that many of you already know, that illegal fees are theft and that Nassau County cannot steal from its residents. Now, we are delighted to hear that both parties have put forward proposals that would strip the $59 million in increases in fees. That is a promising first step. So we're here to encourage you two things. If NIFA rejects this budget, that when you come back and convene, that you hold strong and to keep those $59 million out of the fee increases. But the second is to tell you this, that $59 million fee increase is not the end of this. In fact, in just the clerk's office, the assessment department, and the Traffic and Parking Violations Agency, there are still nearly $100 million in illegal fees. Not fees, but illegal fees. So that is something that the county is going to need to address in next year's budget and going forward. Some of you may have seen the news in Suffolk County, where Suffolk County was just sued over illegal fees by the Government Justice Center. That is something that could come here to Nassau County as well. So we encourage you to start this practice today by repealing the by rejecting the $59 million fee increase, and next year looking to fix the budget by stripping out all illegal fees entirely. Thank you very much.
Okay. I don't have any other slips, but is there any other individual who would like to comment at this particular time at the hearing from the public? There being none, then I move on to any comments or questions from the legislators. There being none, no questions from the legislators.
Madam Presiding Officer, if I may. We have a statement, but I was going to present it at the time when we actually proposed our amendments.
Okay, that's fine.
We're just going to defer for now.
All right. There being no other comments from the legislators, a motion to close the hearing, moved by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Walker. All those in favor of closing the hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The hearing is now closed. The next item, which is not in order on our calendar, is item 4, legislative budget, clerk, item 354. And Mr. Pulitzer, you could read the item.
Thank you, Madam. An ordinance to adopt the budget for the county legislature for the county of Nassau for the 12-month 2018 fiscal year, beginning January 1, 2018, and ending December 31st, 2018, and to appropriate revenues for said budget pursuant to the provisions of the County Government law of Nassau County, the Nassau County Administrative Code, the real property tax law, the county law, the local finance law, the general municipal law of the state of New York, and Chapter 14 of the law of 1995, 354-17.
Thank you very much. Moved by Legislator, Deputy Presiding Officer Richard Nicolello, and seconded by Legislator Muscarella. All right? Now, yes?
We have, as
Yes.
part of our amendment package, some of our amendments include potential changes to the legislative budget as it pertains to the legislative majority, minority, clerk's office, and budget review. However, we view our amendments in their entirety. Those amendments were part of an elected official reduction, which included the county executive's office. We would rather prefer to know if there is willingness on our amendments as it pertains to the legislative budget and the county executive reductions before we take up the measure of seeing where we are on the legislative budget right now. That's understood.
I believe, though, you had amendments pertaining to this item.
We do, but our amendments cannot be viewed as isolated. Our amendments include reductions to other elected official offices as well. And being that those reductions are not being up for consideration at this particular second in regards to the amendments, we feel it's a little bit putting the cart before the horse because ultimately, we would like to see the reductions across the board. If there's no willingness to do the reductions across the board, then we kind of know where we stand as it pertains to our amendments in regards to the legislative budget.
You mean item 2?
No, item 3. You already called item 2.
No.
Yeah, you're calling this.
Yes, I know, which is item 2 on the budget. So how do you do that? I will certainly consider your request, and therefore I'm going to It's been requested that I call item 351-17, an ordinance to adopt the Nassau County budget for the 2018 fiscal year. And it's moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Nicolello, alternate Officer Howard Capel. And so the item is now before us, and this is item 351. But before, I would like to comment on the fact that we have heard from the Office of Management and Budget, the Police Department, and various other county departments and personnel, and we will now consider amendments offered both by the Democrat and Republican caucuses. As is customary, I will now offer the floor to the Democrats to propose their amendments. Legislator Abrahams, do you have? Does he have to have a motion to put him?
Yeah, Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Before I make the motion, obviously, to put our amendments forward, I just wanted to explain them in their entirety. Obviously, one of the big thrusts of our amendments is removing the fees. There's $50 million in fees, of which $35 million is tied to public safety, the public safety fee, $12 million towards the clerk, another $12 million towards assessment. Also, within our budget amendments, we include the enhancement of an independent inspector general. As we all well know, in Nassau County as well as abroad, abroad in other municipalities, we have seen a heightened level of public corruption. An independent inspector general to revamp our procurement process, revamp our system. That amendment would be $1.25 million. To fund our amendments, we would utilize bond premiums to the tune to cover $35 million in the public safety fee. We also believe that our next amendment would be a 50% reduction in the printing and graphics. I think we've seen for some time now the blatant abuse of how printing for postcards and mailers in many cases becomes self-glorification for elected officials. I think our taxpayers are tired of seeing mailers come to their homes that cost the county hundreds of thousands of dollars. We believe that we can put this forward, this amendment, which will save the county $875,000. We would in the legislative portion of the budget, and then we would also be looking to make another reduction to the other than personal services for outside counsel contracts. The Rules Committee sees every other week we see through our Rules Committee, sometimes even more frequent, but we see rules contracts that we truly believe this work could be done in-house. We've been saying this now for quite some time. Outside counsel contracts could save this county $15.7 million. And then obviously there are other amendments that we were looking to do as well. Reductions among elected officials in the county executive's office as well as the legislative office. We believe by trying to lead by example that if we're going to ask for other elected officials to make cuts in their budget while the county is doing some belt tightening, we can very well do it in our own budget. And we believe that we believe we could see a cut of $150,000 among the legislative staff, which spreads it out throughout the entire legislature. But then also there will be a cut to the county executive as well. And last two things, we would like to, one of our amendments includes use of the NIFA consultant initiatives, which is $2.2 million expense decrease. And then we believe also tied to what Commissioner Ryder has talked about in regards to potentially reducing greater opportunities in overtime. we believe we can save $5 million by decreasing that expense because of the enhancements that he will continue to try to do. That being said, I would like to put a motion forward to have our amendments be considered.
I'll second it.
Frank, moved by Minority Leader, second by Legislator Georgie. Okay, any comments from the legislators?
No, I did that.
Any public comment? There being none? Okay, all those in favor of the items that Kavan has put forth, signify by saying aye. All those, any opposed? Nay. The items fail. Okay, now we're going to move on to the second, to the item that I called previously, which was the legislative budget, and I think they were incorporated, the amendments were incorporated in the minority's amendments, and so at this point in time, I'm going to ask for a vote on item, I believe it was 4, correct? I believe it was item 4, and all those in favor of item 4, which is the legislative budget, signify by saying... No. It's not item 4?
Go to the amendments first. Our amendment.
No, I
Do
did.
our amendments first. Our amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I was just trying to jump the gun a little bit. All right. We're going back to the county budget, and I know. Moving on, I will take Legislator Mascarella and make the motion for to put forth the Republican amendments, and seconded by Legislator Capel. All right. Now the amendments before us, to make it clear, will eliminate proposed fee increases and replace these fee increases with $60 million in alternative revenue opportunities and expense reductions to fully fund the 2018 budget. A major difference between this budget and prior budgets is that NYFA has once again changed the rules for 2018 and has created an artificial accounting standard for Nassau County that is different than any other that existed in previous administrations, Democrat administrations, and when the Democratic majority existed. And this is a departure from the GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles. Nassau County, unlike other municipalities in the state, including the state itself, cannot recognize bond premiums as revenue. This revenue, allowed by other municipalities and New York State. All right. Furthermore, it has been allowed by NYFA in past budgets to fund litigation expenses, including the 2017 budget, wherein $55 million was used to pay for suits and damages. The Republican majority does not support this abrupt rule change, and apparently neither does the Democrat minority. Applying bond premium to suits and damages and tax certiorari is a prudent use of this money, as many of these liabilities span multiple budget years and are not specific to 2018. Additionally, two major initiatives to address tax certiorari liabilities, the Disputed Assessment Fund, DAP, and Income Expense Law, passed by both Republicans and Democrats in this legislature, must be given time to take effect. These laws, if successful, will be transformative in their effect and will help to slash tax certiorari debt, minimize commercial assessment errors, and save taxpayers money. By changing its rule on bond premium and denying us this GAAP-accepted revenue, NYFA has created a massive budget hole that the administration has tried to plug with $60 million in fee revenue. Our amendments reject this approach while using conservative projections and time-tested alternatives. The amendments before us utilize a combination of cuts, revenue, and savings from the following initiatives. An opportunity exists to restructure county debt for savings of approximately $8 million in 2018 and over $30 million throughout the life of the debt. Sales tax. Our robust economy justifies an increase in our expected growth in sales tax from 2% as proposed to 2.5%. Governor Cuomo estimates, listen to this one, New York State sales tax will grow 5%, and all economic indicators are positive going into 2018. Based on this information, this increase is more than justified. Police overtime. As we have heard from Commissioner Ryder, additional police hires over 2017 and into 2018, combined with more aggressive management, allow for a $5 million cut to police overtime. Traffic and parking violations. Revenues remains above budget for 2017, justifying a higher estimate of $3.5 million for 2018. Police department summonses and activity has increased, allowing for at least a $1 million budget credit. It is likely this number is very conservative. County clerk's fees continue to overperform in 2017, and a strong economic outlook for 2018 justify an increase of $4 million. Budget recovery. Every year, Nassau County recovers amounts unspent from prior year's budgets, on average in the amount of $22 million. Our amendments recognize an additional $10 million for a total of $15 million recovered in 2018, conservatively estimated well below the average recovery. Turnover attrition, managed backfill, labor turnover, hiring at lower salaries and structuring the backfilling of employees is estimated to save an additional $8 million above budget. NIFA's consultant flagged this as a management opportunity. But a fund balance. Nassau County is currently over-reserved at 5.1%, and both the Comptroller and Budget Office estimate a year-end cash surplus. This amendment utilizes $9.5 million in fund balance to be replenished in whole or in part by our expected cash surplus for 2017. NIFA cost initiatives. NIFA has identified multiple initiatives that will save $6.5 million, including issuing paperless checks, the employment of an energy consultant, fuel savings, reduction in personnel, and consolidation of IT and dispatch functions. The total of these initiatives amount to $60 million. Many of these initiatives are going to require the aggressive management of the next administration to be successful. The fact is, many of them are not necessary and represent opportunities for the benefit of the county residents if NIFA allows us to utilize bond premium as it has in previous years. Accordingly, we have included as a contingency $30 million as a contingency, $30 million in bond premium revenue to be used if NIFA rejects any of the items I have just detailed. The more this revenue is likely to be available, given the country's current low interest rate environment. As for the Republican members, do I have any comments from the legislators? Any public comment?
Amazon officer?
Yes,
I thought she was seeking comment from the Republicans. Sorry. I do want to offer an opportunity. Obviously, as you well know, we are in agreement of removing the fees in regards to the legal nature of them, also from the standpoint of the testimony that we heard, as it doesn't pertain to actual the budgets of those offices, that those revenues do not go towards the budget or administering or enhancing services. The one part that we do not have agreement on, actually there's several parts, but the one part we do not have agreement on that we do not hear in your budget amendments is the amending your budget to include an independent inspector general. If there is willingness on your side, there could be agreement for the budget amendments moving forward. And we believe that we can pay for the inspector general, independent inspector general, using the 3 contingency initiatives already included in your amendments. If there's willingness to do that and work towards rooting out corruption in this county, then we are more than prepared to review and as well as support your amendments. So I would like to make a motion to amend the majority's legislative budget to include the independent inspector general.
I don't believe it's in order at this particular time. Okay?
Well, why would it be in order?
Because we have not voted on the Republican amendments.
That's what I'm saying. I'm making a motion to amend before you vote. That's the point of it.
No,
is to make you have to make before your amendment passes. You have to make the motion. Yeah, we do that all the time. And once it's voted on, it's voted on.
I think there's a time period here of 7 days, all right, and then therefore the proposal is out of order.
Madam Presiding Officer, just to make sure we're clear, our amendments, as were yours, were filed 7 days prior to the legislative calendar of where we are today. So our amendments have been vetted. There's nothing in disguise. The public has had an opportunity to see our amendments. They have had an opportunity to question our amendments. I am not changing our amendment. What I'm requesting is that you include one portion of our amendment so that it's included in the majority's amendment. I believe we have a motion on the floor, so let's at least take a vote.
I'll second it.
Right now, you have to remember that the minority amendments failed.
Yes, but
therefore, it's still out of order.
So our amendments failed because the majority is not willing to support an independent inspector general. It was many components about our amendments, but there's agreement at least on the fees being reduced or being removed from the budget. So is it because the independent inspector general why you voted against our amendments, or was it because something else? This is one item. We listed out a whole slew of amendments that included printing and graphics, included cuts to the elected official's office. It had the reduction of outside counsel for the county attorney's office. I'm not too sure. You guys really didn't say which part of our amendments you had a problem with. You just voted no. If the problem is an independent inspector general, then I think the public deserves a response to that. But from our standpoint, we're willing to concede that you're not going to support our other amendments as it pertains to those other things such as OTPS and the county attorney's budget. So we're willing to support your amendments if there's agreement that you are willing to pay for an independent inspector general using your contingency initiatives, which are already included in your budget. Yeah, I said that.
Obviously, I mean, it's been discussed over and over again that we have a difference of opinion in terms of the nature of the office. We believe that the Commissioner of Investigations fulfills the functions. The issue, obviously, with increasing the budget for that office is you have to obtain revenues to cover that. And ultimately, I think we felt that your amendments in many ways were too speculative. Now, having said that, I want to note for the record that there is a tremendous amount of common ground between what they propose and what we're proposing. I mean, both sets of amendments eliminate the fees, as has been pointed out. Both sets of amendments use bond premiums in the 2018 budget, as every other municipality in the state is able to do. Both sets of amendments incorporate some NIFA suggested initiatives while rejecting the more ridiculous ones. Both sets of amendments reduce the overtime expenses in consideration of the testimony of the Commissioner. So there is broad sense of agreement. We have some disagreements, but I think the overall message here to NIFA is that with respect to these areas, these broad areas, and they cover most of what we're trying to do, there is unanimous agreement among 18 elected officials who represent both sides of the aisle, who represent this entire county. So when the NIFA, which is an unelected bureaucracy, who, according to the rules that existed for most of these years, should have ended its control period, when they look at what we're trying to do today, or what we're doing, I asked them to have respect for the elected officials of Nassau County, and I asked them to understand that these elected officials representing the entire county are telling them that we want to go in the direction that we're putting forth today, that all of our amendments are properly sourced. This is a conservative budget, a manageable budget. So, again, that's the message to NIFA, which is, A, your control period should be over, and B, have some respect for the people of Nassau County. But, again, getting back to your point, look, we have disagreement, though, Inspector General or a Commissioner of Investigations. That's been going on for a year, as you know.
Yeah, I know.
And if we can identify additional funds to support the Commissioner of Investigations, we certainly would be interested in doing that. Just one last point to make. I know it's not in our amendments, but it's our intention to do later on, which is to increase the funding for legal aid, which I think is something that was in your amendments.
Yes.
We unfortunately missed that, but we will be supporting that before the end of this year.
Is that something that you can support now?
I don't know if we can because of the way it's.
Well, we could do it by emergency. Look. But all right.
You'll have our commitment on that. That's the increase in legal aid is something that will be done before the end of 2017.
That's a commitment.
Okay, I understand that, and I appreciate you making on the record that you're committed towards the legal aid. But for our standpoint, in regards to the independent inspector general, it's not just the funding of the office. That's what we're doing today in funding the office to the tune of $1.25 million. It's also tied to the fact that this office, in our belief, will potentially root out waste, fraud, and abuse as it pertains to many offices, which we can't even quantify that number. The only number that we can quantify is the potential of the APTEC contract, when it could have cost the county upwards of $12 million. If we had someone that was actually focused on making this their focus of rooting out wasteful spending in the procurement program, it could save this county even more. So we're looking at this in a vacuum. This should be something that could save the county more, so that we're able to do things such as the Legal Aid Society, as well as other things as well. And it just seems like that seems to be the issue in regards to, because then if it's not the issue, then why can't we incorporate it today? It makes perfect sense to incorporate it today. We're enhancing the office of the Commissioner of Investigations. This is going to be a better office. It's going to have more investigators. It's going to have more staff. It's going to be able to deal with the issues at hand. Other municipalities are pushing for these initiatives. They're pushing for these types of policies. Our colleagues, or your colleagues in the town of Hempstead, Oyster Bay, are all pushing for these things. It just seems like there's an unwillingness to do it here, especially when there's 95% of agreement on the rest of the amendments and how we fund them. But I just can't believe that we're going to continue to put our heads in the sand and not do anything as it pertains to when we have an opportunity to do so in this budget document. We're not going to do anything. And quite frankly, the Commissioner of Investigations, it's my understanding, she is no longer here. So right now, this office is not functioning with anyone there. Don't know when that person will be hired. I doubt that person will be hired before the end of this term. But quite frankly, I really believe this is a perfect opportunity before the next person comes in under the next county executive to give them clear guidelines of what this legislative body is expecting from an independent inspector general or commissioner of investigations or whatever you want to call it. It is a perfect opportunity for us to clearly delineate what we expect with the proper staff and the proper instruction for that office. This is our opportunity, folks. If we don't seize it now, then we're capable of going right down the same path that we went down before. It's our opportunity with a new county executive coming in. It is a perfect opportunity for this legislative body to speak up and state exactly where they stand, which we believe is an office that is funded to the tune of $1.25 million, which would drastically be an improvement on where we are now.
Legislator Rhodes?
Okay, no problem. No, no problem.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I mean, I think it's I understand the sentiment, but I think it's unfair to suggest that we have done nothing to address what I think we all want, which is openness and transparency in government. Over the course of the last year and a half, we've passed a series of reforms in requiring new lobbyist disclosure forms, reforming our contracting and procurement process to require vendor disclosures, campaign contribution disclosures. We've actually lowered the threshold of Rules Committee review from $25,000 to $1,000 for our contracts. We've strengthened the Board of Ethics. We've strengthened the Office of the Commissioner of Investigations. We've hired a Director of Procurement Compliance. I think we're all supportive of openness and transparency in government, but I think our disagreement with respect to the Inspector General proposal, and again, I don't want to engage in a semantics argument. We think that the combination of the Board of Ethics and the Commissioner of Investigations are able to perform the functions that the Inspector General would perform under the Democrats' proposal. But I think the question becomes, what's the function, what's the oversight, who has control? Our concern with respect to the notion of an independent Inspector General is simply one of you have powers that are vested, oversight powers that are vested in the county controller, that are vested in the district attorney, that are vested in the county legislature. They're vested in elected officials because the elected officials are directly accountable to the people. When you take those roles and responsibilities and put them in an office defined as independent, when really that term is unaccountable, that becomes problematic on constitutional grounds. You can't take powers that are vested in elected officials and turn them over to someone who's unelected, whom elected officials don't have the ability to review even when there's misconduct on their part. So, I think we have not really even a budgetary disagreement. I think we simply have a disagreement with respect to the roles of the office and vesting ultimate responsibility in the people that the state government vests that ultimate responsibility in, which is our elected officials. We should be doing our job. And so, I think we have an honest policy disagreement, not really a budgetary disagreement. I don't know that this is the proper forum even really to talk about it. But thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead, Madam. I didn't know you wanted to speak.
Legislator Capel.
And I just want to build just a little bit on what Legislator Rhodes just so eloquently pointed out. I think that we don't have much of a disagreement as to what we all want. We all want ethics. We all want oversight. We all want honesty. We all want transparency. There's nobody here that wants things to be anything else. The question really becomes taking somebody who is independent. You give somebody a contract. That person then literally has no one to whom he or she has to report. They do what they want. They run amok. You've got change of administration. You've got a change of the legislature. You don't know what's going to happen there. Now, if you look at the functions of the Commissioner of Investigations as it is now, the functions are not all that different. The functions are essentially similar. Further, we have a responsibility, and I think we need to very carefully discharge that responsibility of oversight. We're talking about contracts. We have tightened up the contracts. We pointed out, and you enthusiastically on the other side joined in on the question of retroactive contracts, which essentially took away our right to decide and our right to review things. That's been tightened up considerably. It needs to be tightened up more, certainly, but we're going in the right direction. So it's not a funding issue. It's not particularly relevant to the budget, because the difference in funding, if we should somehow come to a further agreement on the main political issue of whose responsibility it ought to be. Should it be the district attorney and the attorney general and the U.S. attorney at times, who have been, indeed, we've seen doing their jobs in this regard. If we can come to some sort of accommodation at some point in the future about what specifically the functions ought to be, and if perhaps the person, and let's get away from labels, Inspector General or Commissioner of Investigations. Labels aren't important. I think we all understand that. So if we can come to some sort of agreement as to enhancement, in the grand scheme of things, in the $3 billion budget, the money will be found. That's not the issue at all. This is, over here, this is really a budget discussion, and I would respectfully suggest that that's something we ought to stick to. Let's continue talking about the budget. If we want to have a further discussion at some point in the future about making changes, we've been having discussions. We ought to continue them, certainly. And as I say, at that point, the funding becomes fairly non-controversial.
Minority Leader.
In all due respect to Legislator Rhodes and alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, a couple different things about what she had said. First and foremost, this is the perfect opportunity to have this discussion, because we're talking about increasing the budget of Commissioner of Investigations, our independent Inspector General, as we see it. We're talking about increasing the budget so that they can assist in preventing, rooting out potential corruption. I also want to make sure that we're clear that the offices that have been mentioned, whether it's the U.S. Attorney, the District Attorney, or the Attorney General's office, all those offices are coming in after the fact. What the Inspector General, as we see it, the Inspector General will be working hand in hand in preventing. We don't want to deal with the corruption when it's on the front page of the newspapers. We want to be able to prevent it before it even occurs. And how we envision an office would be an office that is working to prevent it. That's a part of the procurement process. That's part of the RFP process. That's integral part of how Nassau County does things. Second, the district attorney said right here before this legislative body that she was in support of an independent inspector general. From that statement alone gives us the impression that she is not concerned about her power being diminished. She believes that this is an integral part. Yes, an independent inspector general would work towards investigating and reporting. They will not be prosecuting any particular cases. Those cases will still be prosecuted by the district attorney, the attorney general, or the U.S. Attorney's office. That will not change. But you do need somebody that's able to investigate and report on what's going on in this county in regards to procurement. That is fact. There is no one doing that now. We were told that the Commissioner of Investigations, Mrs. Myrell, was going to be that. To our understanding and based on what we've seen, she's only forwarded one case as it pertains to the Parks Department or lumber. That was it. She has not done any other investigation. With everything that's going on in this county, she has not done anything else. We were promised that a year ago, that person will be the equivalent of what we were seeking in an independent inspector general. And she has not demonstrated that ability. And we wish her well as she deals with her personal and family matters. But the fact remains that she did not provide that function. That is a clear fact. She did not have the resources, the ability, or whatever may be the case, but she did not do that. So from our standpoint, it's a very clear delineation on what the two things are. This is a perfect opportunity to discuss this because we're talking about ramping up this office so that it can handle with potential corruption that is out there. And as it was said before, as regards to some of the measures that have been put forward, not one of those measures that have been put forward would have prevented an APTEC scandal from happening from our standpoint, or the alleged allegations from the county executive now. None of those measures would have taken place. You're talking about disclosures. You're not talking about anything that's being done from an investigative arm. And obviously, so just to summarize, it is our belief that this is the perfect opportunity to discuss it. It's an opportunity for this legislative body to give their stamp of approval that we are ready to roll up our sleeves and show the public that we are willing to staff an office that will have the proper investigators to be able to assist and report to this legislative body on what they're seeing as it pertains to discrepancies in the procurement practice in this county.
Legislator Barnell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I just wanted to make a point that I believe this is a discussion centered around the budget relative to the Commissioner of Investigations, in so much that, again, the investigators that were determined to, or I should say identified to assist that office came out of the county attorney's office. And we keep saying whether it's Office of Inspector General or whether it's the Commissioner of Investigation, the operative word here to me is independence. And if we're going to create an office that's going to operate independently, we are required to make sure that it's resourced properly, that it's not sharing any of the resources of a department that is directly within the supervision of the administration, the county executive's office. Further, we have seen that even in its formation, the current office did not function properly because it's not independent of the administration. There was money that was allocated to that department in the last budgeting round for positions that were to be hired in that department to assist in the investigations, and those positions were never filled. They were never filled. So this department, acting in direct relation to the administration, is ineffective. I don't know how many times we can say this, and it's lost on me how the folks on the other side can't get that it's not operating independently as long as it's going to be in line. It's going to be in line to the administration, and it's not insulated from retribution or retaliation. We have to insulate that department, and we have to resource them properly. So this is most certainly a conversation that is tied to this budget. And this is the time for us to discuss this. This is the time for us to act. Yes, there's been other measures that have been implemented, but as the minority leader has stated, none of them would have stopped an AppTech scandal. So the point is, let's stop playing around with this thing and do something meaningful, impactful. The residents of Nassau County are crying for it. When are we going to act? Today's the day. Let's do something meaningful. We can implement this through emergency. We're here. We're willing. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Okay. At this point, if there's no public comment, I'd like to move on.
Madam Presiding Officer, I would just like to push for a vote today on your amendments as amended to include the independent inspector general.
There is no amendment. No amendment.
What are you talking about? We push forward. There's a motion on the floor. We put forward a motion on the floor.
But it's out of order, Minority Leader.
It's not out of order.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Our amendments have been vetted for 7 days, just like yours were. But the public had an opportunity to scrutinize our amendments.
That's why.
There is no reason why.
The amendments were voted upon, and they failed. And it included this particular amendment.
So
that
is why we are making a motion to amend your amendments as it pertains to this particular item.
I'm ruling that it's out of order.
It's not out of order.
I'm going to move on. If there's no public comment regarding
let's speak.
Republican amendments, I'm going to move on.
If we could say, just for the record, we put forward an amendment for an independent inspector general to amend 95% of agreement that we have in your budget document.
The chair is now calling for a vote.
I just want to make sure we're clear for the record so the public understands. So basically, we are in agreement with 95% of your amendments.
Right.
And you have made the decision, because since we have that agreement, you have made the decision that you will not include an independent inspector general to be funded to the tune of $1.25 million, which you could fund out of your contingency part of your budget. You have made it clear that you are not going to consider our amendment to your amendment because you do not want an independent inspector general. You made that very clear.
Okay. I'm going to call the item. All those in favor of the Republican amendments to the budget signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the amendments pass 11 to, I believe, to 7. All right, and now a vote on the budget as amended. Okay, all those in favor of the budget as amended signify by saying aye.
Presiding Officer, before you take that vote.
We're going to go back to the legislative budget as well.
No. This is on the county budget. We are very encouraged and happy to see that the fees have been stripped out of this budget. We believe that the illegal fees imposing $66 million in fee hikes, and I think it's been noted by public comment. Just recently we saw, I'm sorry, not 59 million. In Suffolk County, we saw that this past week that there's obviously been a lawsuit filed under the complaint stating that there's unauthorized taxes by the fees that are being done there. It would have been costly to Nassau County to have this liability going into the 2018 budget. We feel and we're happy to see that at least your amendments will address that. However, we are very discouraged at this point at several different times just today when there was an opportunity to vote for an independent inspector general to add transparency and enhance oversight for this particular budget. You chose not to do it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, at this present time, though we are happy to see the fees be reduced, as we showed in our amendments that have been put forward, we're going to have to vote against the budget because it does not protect Nassau County taxpayers to the potential of hundreds of millions of dollars that's out there in potential waste, fraud, and abuse in this county. Right now, by not having an independent inspector general, the taxpayers have no idea whether or not their taxpayer dollars are being watched carefully by independent authority. Thank you.
At this point, before I take a vote on the budget as amended, I would like for the record to say that we, from the get-go, both sides of the aisle, made every effort to find ways to avoid the fees that were put into the county executive's budget. And so we did. And we're going to move on and move to the budget as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The budget passes 11 to 7. All right. Which means that the fees are eliminated so that you understand where we're coming from. Now, for the legislative budget, which was item 4 in the budget, and I believe that amendments were put forth, and we did not take a vote on I believe we took a vote on those amendments, and I believe we did. Did we take a vote on those amendments? No, I don't think we did. All right, the minority amendments were explained, and the motion was made and seconded, and now we need to vote on the minority amendments. All those in favor of the minority amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
In favor of the minority amendments.
We did those already. We did that already.
No, we didn't. No, the legislative budget. We're doing the legislative budget.
Proposing them again?
No, we didn't vote on them.
We did not vote on the subject.
No, remember we said we would. Okay.
There are no amendments.
Okay.
No amendments to vote.
There are. I have been advised there are no amendments to vote on at this time for item 4, which is the legislative budget, and all those in favor of the legislative budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Legislative budget goes forward. Holy moly. All right. No, we're not done. I know we're not done. All right. We have 2 other items. We have, hold on. We have the tax levy ordinance, which is clerk item 352. All right. And item 3 on the calendar. And rather than read the whole thing, can we avoid reading the ordinance 133?
We waive reading.
Please waive the reading, okay? All right, we're waiving the reading of ordinance 133. All right, any questions or comments regarding a motion moved by legislator Nicolello, seconded by legislator Mascarella. Okay, now, holy moly.
There's an amendment on this.
Okay, and I believe there's an amendment on this item. A motion to put forth the amendment by legislator Capel, seconded by legislator Nicolello. All right. What was it? What? All those in favor of the amendment to item 3 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the item passes 11 to 7. We now vote on the item as amended. All those in favor of item 3 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, the item passes 11 to 7. All right, and one more item, which is the last item, which is the item 5 on the calendar, and it pertains to the multi-year plan, or clerk item 353-17, moved by legislator Nicolello, seconded by legislator Mascarella. All right, any questions, comments regarding the item 5? Any public comment? There being none, all those in favor of the resolution item 5, multi-year plan, clerk item 353, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Is it unanimous? No? It passes 11 to 7. Okay, and guess what? I believe that is it. A motion to adjourn by moved by legislator Capel, seconded by legislator Nicolello. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now adjourned, and thank you for coming and indulging. Get out of the politics. Please don't leave any paperwork here.